Welcome once again to our reading of Why the Cross. When Jesus was 12 years old, he had spent time in the temple during Passover week, discussing religious issues with some of the nation's leading theologians. Not only was he listening to them and asking them questions, Luke 2:46, something to be expected from a young boy, but he was also addressing questions which they put to him, and all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. Luke 2:47. During his public ministry, his disciples had the benefit of this amazing wisdom at first hand. They saw crowds astonished at his teaching, for he was one teaching them with one who had authority, and not as their scribes. Matthew 7:28 and 29. When he taught in his local synagogue in Nazareth, those who heard him were astonished and asked, "Where did this man get his wisdom and these mighty works?" Matthew 13:54. Officers sent to arrest him returned to their masters empty-handed, explaining that they dare not lay hands on him, as no one ever spoke like this man. John 7:46. Why the cross for someone whose teaching enlightened and revolutionized the thinking of countless people? Others would have remembered or have heard that he went about doing good, and that when he saw people in need, he had compassion on them. Acts 10:38 and Matthew 14:14. At one point, a great multitude of people from all Judea and Jerusalem and the seacoast of Tyre and Sidon flocked after him. Luke 6:17. Yet far from reveling in this popularity, he remained gentle and lowly in heart. Matthew 11:29. He behaved no differently when attacked. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. 1 Peter 2:23. Reflecting on this, the Apostle Paul wrote, "The meekness and gentleness of Christ," 2 Corinthians 10:1. Unlike those who were self-centered, Jesus did not please himself, Romans 15:3, and he constantly put the interests of others before his own. Why the cross for a man like this? Jesus' love and compassion were demonstrated in his astonishing miracles. At the beginning of his ministry, we find him healing every disease and every affliction among the people, Matthew 4:23. This does not mean that he left behind a trail of sickness-free zones, but he did heal countless people, including those suffering from blindness, deafness, organic disorders, paralysis, and demon possession. Leprosy was considered incurable in those days, and sufferers from the disease were social outcasts, to be avoided at all costs. Yet when a man with leprosy asked him for help, Jesus reached out his hand and healed him with a touch. Mark 1:40-45. On another occasion, he healed 10 lepers at once. See Luke 17:11. On at least 3 occasions, he raised people from the dead. The younger daughter of Jairus, who was a ruling synagogue elder, Matthew 9:18. A young man whose body was being carried to the local cemetery, Luke 7:11-17. And a personal friend called Lazarus, who had been dead and buried for 4 days, John 11:1-44. Nor were his miracles limited to physical healing. His first recorded miracle was turning water into wine at a wedding, John 2:1-12. Faced with a hungry crowd of 5,000 people, he fed them all with 5 loaves and 2 fish, Matthew 14:13-21. Later he fed 4,000 with 7 loaves and a few small fish, Mark 8:1-21. When his disciples were in danger of drowning in a violent storm on the Sea of Galilee, he stilled the wind and waves with a word, Luke 8:22. There were also countless other miracles of which we have no written record. John's Gospel ends with the words, "Now there are so many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written." John 21:25. It has been suggested that Jesus may have performed more miracles in one day than were performed in 1,000 years of Old Testament history. Be that as it may, his miracles demonstrated not only his power, but his love, compassion, and kindness. Why the cross for a man whose life was spent serving others in such miraculous ways?